a pack of hardy souls looking for freedom and new challenges. Their friends called them desert rats, explorers of desolation, driving all sorts of vehicles. They were the pioneers that discovered the rewards and rigors of roaming these primitive desert trails. They discovered Baja Mexico. With competitions and quasi-races becoming more and more popular, the inevitable challenge was finally laid on the table. Along with Cliff Coleman and Eddie Mulder, motorcyclist brothers Dave and Bud Eakins accepted the dare to ride from Tijuana to La Paz and establish a record for covering the 1,000 miles. The unwritten challenge of the Baja Peninsula grew up in the 60s. It inflamed the imagination and bravado of the off-roaders, and in 1967 led to the first Mexican 1,000. Ed Pearlman, the founder of the race, now called the Baja 1000, remembers racing to La Paz just to see how fast they could do it.
How difficult was the first couple of Baja 1000s?
It was more than a dare, it was a question. Dick Sept came to my home. We were good friends at the time. Of course, he's long since passed on. And he had a newspaper with him, and it was from the Cycle News or Cycle World. And he showed me an article by 3 motorcyclists that went down the Baja Peninsula and did from Tijuana to La Paz in a certain amount of time. He says, if I got you a set of tires that would not go flat, could you beat this record in your Land Cruiser? I had been racing my Land Cruiser in some of Brian Chichua's races locally, and I said, well, I know the peninsula and I think I can do it, but let's try it. So he made up these tires. Make that part of the story short. That car is at my daughter's home in Northern California. Those tires are still there. Yes. They have the original air in them. This is a map that we made up showing where we would stop and the route that we would take, because there was no idea of which was the fastest. In fact, we thought the fastest way to go was to go from Tijuana all the way to Mexicali on the highway, and then down to San Felipe and on south. And this is the map that we carried. Now, Dick Sept was my co-driver, and the Land Cruiser that we used, that still exists, was the vehicle that we used, and we had what we thought were everything we needed on there. And we had no flats. There was another vehicle that went with us. They had 8 flats.
This is Jim McKay reporting from Ensenada, Mexico, some 60 miles south of the U.S. border, the starting point for one of the world's strangest motor races. Over the terrain of Baja, California, which somewhat resembles that of the moon, more than 250 vehicles are prepared to race in the Mexican 1000. There's prize money, almost $60,000.
Parnelli, you, of course, have spent your racing life in the big leagues of racing, Indianapolis specifically. What in the world are you doing in this race?
Well, more than anything else, I'd have to say that I really don't have to take it quite so serious, and I have run a race in the past in a Bronco, and I enjoyed it very much, and it was really a lot of fun, so I thought I'd try it again.
Is it the same thing as driving a car in Indianapolis in the sense that a race driver is a race driver is a race driver?
Well, I think one of the real problems, it becomes a problem because when you see another car up ahead of you that maybe you're overtaking or something, you get quite racy at times. And of course, this is not always the best thing because you can really only drive these things about as far as you can see ahead of you. And the minute you try to take a chance or something, even if you do get away with it, it only encourages you to do it again. And once you stick one in a hole or bend the front end or blow a couple of front tires out or something like that, you're really in trouble.
Another top bike rider coming, Larry Berquist.
What's the strategy?
Just go fast.
15 seconds.
Okay. Have fun, baby. 3, 2, 1,
go! Now we're looking again through a camera in a vehicle. This is in Bob Bondurant's dune buggy. There is Robert taking a few bounces. This is such a long and such a grueling thing. Remember, the record is more than 26 hours, and they hope to break it. Now, Parnelli Jones. We've gotten word that Parnelli, who said he was going to kind of cool it, just try to hold the car together, covered the first 95 miles in 60 minutes. Car looks terribly funny around the left rear wheel. The wheels come off. No spin, though, and with the skill that brought him an Indianapolis championship, he has brought it to a halt. And with the spare wheels, he may be able to get going again. And now, here's the familiar figure of Mickey Thompson. He jumped on the hood of Larry Minor's Bronco as it came in. Mickey Thompson, the well-known land speed record driver, owner of Indianapolis cars, and just down here to help out today. We'll try to get a word with Mickey when he's not working here sometime. And look at DeSoto fly. Let's take a look at that in slow motion, because he almost came off this bike. Look, both feet off, just holding onto the handlebars here. He couldn't keep his feet in the pegs, as we said a couple of minutes ago, you're supposed to do, if at all possible. And this time, he's even on fire. Look at that right foot. Almost did a somersault. Almost stood head up on the handlebars of his motorcycle. Somehow or other, though, John DeSoto kept moving forward and with the throttle open wide. Now let's have a word with the busiest volunteer mechanic here today, Mickey Thompson. What's been going on here says something about motor racing.
Oh, this is a fantastic thing. It's a fantastic thing. I think it's a real up-and-coming sport. Last year they had, what, about 65 entries, and this year I understand they have, well, it's had close to 300 entries, and actually about 255 show up. So I think it's really saying something, and it's great that the Mexican people allow us to come down here and race in the roads, you know, especially when they have traffic on it.
Last we saw you way back up the road, you had one tiny problem with the foot latch. Any other problems after that?
Oh, I see. We had about 3 flats, and then I hit a cow coming in too.
You hit a cow?
Yeah, this right here. So we had to slow down a lot from there.
Did they cost you any time?
No, we just slowed down after we hit it and started watching a little closer.
Finishing fourth, the Jeep of Rodney Hall and Carl Jackson. The winners, however, are now official. The Honda of Larry Berquist and Gary Preston in 20 hours, 38 minutes, breaking the previous record by 5.5 hours. We'll be back in La Paz in a minute. Now we end our coverage of the Mexican 1000, a race that will certainly go into the logbook as one of the more memorable experiences as we wander the wide world of sports. The race itself, however, is far from over. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of the field is still somewhere way back up that long road north, and they'll be coming into La Paz to the piece at the end of that road for another day and a half, as a matter of fact. What does it all prove? Well, I don't know, except that it might be the old thing that as long as there's a mountain, there'll be one man who wants to climb it and another who wants to ski down it. As long as there's an ocean, there'll be one man who wants to sail across it and another who wants to plumb its depths. I guess that's the story, and that is the story from us. Jim McKay reporting.
Jim McKay was taken by the Baja. That really pissed a bunch of people off. Will you please welcome Parnelli Jones, and the only man that has run in every Baja 1000, our next 2 legends, Parnelli Jones and Rod Hall. How come you don't race in it anymore?
Too old.
Well, how come you still race in it?
Well, because, you see, I haven't graduated yet. I'm going to try to get out of school pretty soon.
I want to go back and ask you, what was it about desert racing that attracted you? Because, I mean, you were an indie guy. That's what you were known for, at least east of the Mississippi River. Out here, you were known for what you were doing down there in the desert.
Well, actually, you know, Strop kind of coaxed me into doing this, and I thought that I really didn't want to do that. And He said, well, you probably wasn't man enough, so.
I should have never done that, right?
Yeah, that threw the red flag, and I found out that I was having more fun than he thought he was going to have on the deal. But anyway, I had a great time, and I enjoyed it, and I couldn't stay on the road anymore, so off-road seemed to fit me very well.
Ron, how much has it changed through the years? I mean, the equipment is far more sophisticated, but what about in a driver's butt? Is it any different?
Well, obviously some major changes happen, and that's been with the vehicles, and actually a lot of the roads have changed. So the races have become much faster now, and the cars are much more sophisticated than the old days. And in the beginning times, it wasn't actually a race of how fast you could get there. It was knowing the limits of your car and being sure that you didn't use it up before you got to the finish line. So it was more of a test of a driver's will to actually go slow enough to get the car there, but yet fast enough to win. Today, it's on the gas, you got support, and well, the guys with the biggest balls win, man, I want to tell you.
Now here's a guy that's honest, folks, right there. And so what's happened to your gonads lately?
Well, I don't know, they got a little smaller, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, how about a nice round of applause?
Dawn in the fishing village of Ensenada, and the day is ready for the 20th running of the Baja 1000. It began with the motorcycles at 6:30 in the morning as 22-year-old Garth Sweetland began the run, the first to roll away. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and the story we have to tell today is one of man and machine against one of the most rugged pieces of real estate in the world, and yet the strangely beautiful Baja Peninsula of Mexico. On the course itself, Bob Gordon maintains his lead overall in the four-wheel divisions. Gary Pace rides with Gordon.
Bob Gordon, who won this race in 1980, heading east from Ojos Negros, which in Spanish means black eyes. There are puddles in the sandy road, and Gordon, dodging them, is pushing hard. I always felt a flash of elation out here. The car in its element, running 100, 110 sometimes. The chill of dawn in Ensenada behind you. The sun, up now, warming you.
On board with Frank Vessels and Jack Arute, already passing vehicles that left in front of them.
Frank keeps one hand on the wheel. With the other, he shifts the two speeds of his manually operated automatic. A muddy road, something rare for this part of the course, but remember, it's been raining out here this week.
And it's an adventure. It's a man against the elements, especially now with all the rain. You don't know what's around the corner. And it's the idea that I can tackle that race course faster than anybody else, hopefully, or at least the people in my class.
What it is like at speed aboard the car of Bob Gordon. A violent, battering, up and down motion like a speedboat crashing through waves. The ride seems unreal because you know the car can't absorb this, and yet somehow it does. I can remember when Malcolm was building his reputation in the late 1960s, riding motorcycles. He was the guy that gave the whole Southern California off-road racing cult respectability by going to Europe and beating the best they had over there. He could do anything with the motorcycle. I remember that Steve McQueen, who loved to ride, worshipped him.
Got it, Bobby.
10, 9, 8.
We got it.
7.
We got it.
6.
Nobody.
5.
All right.
3, 2, 1. 0.
The roar of the engine dies in the wind. The struggles of man, for now, are finished. The sun rises on the Baja, and the Baja remains as it has through the millennia, unaware of the passage of man.
Gordon is leading me out of Camalou, and we get into Santa Tomas, and I see him up there. He's just leaving the checkpoint.